Councilor Labarge, Councilor Tacey, Councilor Narcoitz, and Mayor Hayes.
Murphy's not here.
Councilor Murphy isn't here. I didn't hear from him that he wouldn't be, so he may be running a few minutes late. The first item on the agenda is a survival center issue. So Mr. Seawald is here, Attorney Seawald, and this is an approval. And you want to explain what you're looking for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Alan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alan Seawald. Some of you know me as an attorney, but I'm here today because I'm the president of the board of the Survival Center. And as you must already know, because you approved the lease for the Survival Center, 30-year lease. We have a lease with the city, and pursuant to that lease, we have undertaken to reconstruct your building and to improve it substantially. With your assistance, allowing us to stay in this space for the next 30 years, we were able to raise $1.2 million and have invested most of that into your building. Almost all of it will be spent either on improving the building or furnishing it and equipping it. Technically, under the lease, to my surprise, this committee needs to approve our building plans. We had submitted the building plans to Essential Services, to David Pomerantz. He reviewed it. We submitted the plans to Mr. Hasbrook. He reviewed it. We submitted the plans to the ZBA for a finding. They reviewed it and approved it. And we technically need your approval on these plans to comply with our lease. The thing that brought this up is that we have pledges of that $1.2 million. Much of it is in hand, but some of it is out on pledges over the next couple of years, and obviously our construction expenses are now, and Florence Savings Bank has generously offered to loan us, give us a credit line to bridge us through the period of pledges. Before you, I have put 2 pages of floor plans. This is exactly what has been built. It will be done by the end of the month, and on April 18th we'll be moving back into this property full time. The exterior is shown on this thank you card that I've reproduced for all of you, not only to show you what it looks like, but also to thank you for your support. And I have to say that I've been on this board for 18 years now, and this has been a mission of mine to get this done for 18 years, and I was in the center last week, and it looks unbelievable. You'll all be getting invitations to our opening event, which probably will not happen until early June, and we hope to see you there. Happy to entertain any questions.
Alan, I'm a little confused about, you've already started the construction there.
Well, we almost finished the
You're almost
construction.
finished, so why aren't we approving a building permit?
It's not a building permit.
It's just the plans.
It's the plans. The permits have already been approved.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
the permits, the finding has been issued by the ZBA, the building permit's been issued by the
Right.
building department. Mr. Pomerantz has seen the plans, he's approved the plans. Everybody's approved the plans except for under the lease, the body who has to approve the plans, and that would be
Gotcha.
you.
Okay,
And it's in your capacity as a city property committee.
yeah.
And it's an, probably should have brought it in before, but I think they had given you an overview when we talked about the lease, so
All right, I
this is a
understand.
more in-depth approval.
I just want to say, I am really happy about this, Alan. I know when Councilor Ray Labarge was on social services, I think it was Michael Bardsley, we had Heidi come in and we did a site visit with her and couldn't believe that they didn't have the adequate spacing in there. It was ridiculous. They couldn't even hardly move in there for storage or anything like that. And she was saying how it was their dream to be able to go ahead and revitalize that whole building and that whole area. And seeing what I'm seeing, I think it's just unbelievable. And I want to thank you, thank your board, and everybody who has donated to such a good cause.
Thank you.
Councilor Tate.
I've been in there half a dozen times during the construction, and it's beautiful, it's really nice, it's an outstanding building. And Heidi has become pretty famous in the city over the course of this construction, she really has. And it's a great job, and I just want to say thank you, it really is. It's a nice job, it's a nice building, and it flows nice. It
Our
flows
architect
nice.
did a fabulous job,
Yeah.
a really nice job. It's a difficult building.
Very
It's
difficult.
A very difficult building, it's like a railroad car, and but he did a great job.
And I didn't know just exactly how you were gonna make it flow, and it worked out very well, worked out nice job.
Thank you.
Councilor Markowitz?
Ditto what everyone said. It's, great project, and I was going to actually just make a formal motion that the finance committee approve the plans as submitted by the leaseholder, the Northampton Survival Center.
I would second
Yeah, I
that.
second that.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. I think this has turned out to be the right way to go on this project, so.
It's been fabulous. I thank the mayor, has been a great supporter over the years, over many years, and I feel very fortunate. This being my last term on the board, I feel like I'm going out on top, so I'm very happy about that.
Open house is when, June, you said maybe?
Early June, you'll certainly all be getting invitations, and you'll know. I don't want to give you the wrong date, but it's early June.
I want to say, I'm amazed how you fit, the building is on the site. The site is more difficult, I think, than the building.
It's the same building?
Yeah,
Well, it's a little larger now than it used to be.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, but it was hard to envision, and our architect had a great vision for it, and I have to say that Sullivan Builders have been
Yeah.
just a dream to work
Yeah.
with. It's all really happened. This is the biggest glitch we've had, but
Yeah.
I didn't get here before we actually built the building. But
This is the biggest glitch you've had. This is pretty good.
yeah, well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we voted.
Yeah, no, we haven't. Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you all
Motion
so
carries.
much.
Thank you very much.
You can go build it now, Alan, okay?
Thank you.
Next, Tom Scanlon Jr. here, Tom Scanlon Jr. is here to present the audit. This is the time of year when we get our audit. Mr. Scanlon and/or his father has been doing it for many years. I think you've been doing our audit for many years now, haven't you?
Yeah, getting to that now. Hair's getting a little gray.
I know. So welcome.
Nice to be here. It's a little warmer out, usually a little warmer out. Out
Yeah,
here,
well,
so.
that's okay. So why don't you do your presentation, then people can ask questions as needed, okay?
Sounds good. As usual, I should have 3 reports by us. Just touch on them.
Actually, at this point, we just got the two.
Oh, you just got
The
2?
management letter and the audit, I don't have the.
There's a single audit. It's on the federal funds. You have to test at least 50% of the federal funds. There's one small minute finding on the federal funds of certification forms that school grants have to sign off on. Very minor, but has to be reported. So, not too much to talk about the A133 report. But the other 2, the thicker one, the financial audit, city did receive an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get for your financial statements, which is good. I kind of reference here, we're going to go through the management letter, usually, that's the next one.
Management letter?
Yeah, this is the one you got in your hand right there.
Take this clip off.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Okay.
The top one is the management letter, the bottom one is the audit.
The third one's the management letter, which is a good one. The management letter, like the thicker one, you'd probably be escorting Chris out of here probably. So we're going to mostly talk about the management letter. Management letters are always letters of criticism where we feel the city can improve their operations, maximize their operating efficiency. In the management letter, there's 3 classes of findings. There's material weaknesses, which kind of self-describe for itself. You have material weakness in your internal control. Significant deficiency is one step down from material weakness, and other matters are simply other matters, or areas that we can improve efficiency. And that's what you have in your management report, which is good. Being with the city for many years, I always thought the city's well managed. It takes its financial reporting very seriously. And in a transaction enters into your system, it's accounted for in the highest degree, which is something to be proud of. Your financial reporting is very good. What I mean by that, someone comes and pays their real estate bill, excise bill, it's accounted for in the system and flows nicely all the way through, which is always, as a resident, it's always good to hear that you have internal controls and safeguards in your system. So item number 1, current year recommendations, the water and sewer accounts receivable. Prior years, there's always been a variance with the water and sewer accounts. This year it changed slightly. We want to see the city put procedures in place where they're monitoring the water and sewer receivables to make sure they're being balanced to the general ledger. It's a form of control the city has, segregation of duties. Collector collects the water and sewer accounts, maintains who's outstanding. It needs to be balancing on a monthly basis to the general ledger as an independent source. And any variances should be researched in a timely manner.
I will say that there has been a historical variance on the water and sewer that goes way back to when there was a legacy system that got uploaded into Munis, and it never got reconciled at that time. It was long before I ever got here. We are going to, I've charged the auditor, Joyce Karpinski, and Amory Shower of the DPW to work on trying to reconcile, trying to get to a number that everyone can agree to for this audit cycle, the FY10 audit cycle, so that we can just get that fixed.
I'd like to make one adjustment here.
Let's make an audit adjustment in fiscal year 10, or 11, sorry.
Yeah.
So what would be the cause for the variance? What would be the practical layman's terms?
Practical in layman's terms, quite often what we find with variances, especially in Munis, is that if a person overpays their bill, Munis internally in its own brain sometimes generates a refund automatically within the system. But of course, no refund ever gets generated. It just does it by itself. This then creates a variance because it's pretending that something happened that actually never did. And we've found that we have to do journal entries to fix those kinds of issues. This has happened in motor vehicle, it's happened in other accounts, and it's a glitch that popped up about 2 upgrades ago with Munis, and it's been a pain in the butt, but we keep fixing it.
Why would somebody send more for their water bill? Just feeling generous, or their own accounting?
Probably they misread what it was. It
Yeah.
might have said $48 and they put $148. One can, you can never really be sure. They put 58 instead of 48.
But you have a legacy problem too,
And
which
there
has
is
to do with
the legacy problem goes way back.
when we
Because
switched over from the old COBOL system to
Right.
the Munis system.
Board of Public Works
Data that
generates the
came in.
bills off of the meter readers. That goes into a system, and that generates the bills, and then the bills they get committed to the collector for collection. Under the when the old system got folded into the Munis system, there was a lack of verification on the accounts outstanding at the time. And so they never got reconciled to what the opening balances were that came into Munis.
Got it. Okay.
But we'll try to get that sorted out.
Yeah, I think the reason why it's in here is
What's the magnitude of the dollar amount here, Tom?
the ongoing variance that, no one fall off their chairs, but the ongoing variance was always 48,000. That variance, that's been carried for multiple years, but the change was $1,250.
So out of a $3 million or $6 million water and sewer, we're
Correct.
talking about $48,000, which is the historical variance.
Correct. That's why it's
Right.
not.
So as it's not a particularly material number, but it's something that should be cleaned up.
Correct,
Is
and the
that
reason
fair to
why,
say?
correct, and the reason why I have it in here is, in one of our community, there's no risk there, where you're not balancing, it's not material to financial statements, as if it was material, it'd be a material weakness or significant deficiency in one of those categories, is, we've had, some
Hanky-panky.
ingenuitous people that took advantage of it, and fraud was committed in that area, and
Because
was
there's
able,
$48,000 floating around one way or another, somebody could pick it up.
and they were able to manipulate it to where it was changing slightly and was able to manipulate the system to where, and that's what, I'm not saying that's happening, it's just happened in one of our communities, and then it lightened us to, well, let's go back. If, again, it's an area we're not balancing to the penny, or, you know, there's some
Fortunately,
Munis glitches, and that's what was taken advantage of in one of our communities, was they took advantage of the Munis glitches. Like every time there was a mistake, always says it was a Munis glitch, and we reverse it back. I believe that's the case here. I just want to bring it to the attention where segregation duties and other people are getting involved in it.
Tom, under the item 1, under water and sewer accounts receivable, if you look at the second paragraph, it kind of like, the language on it is pretty heavy. It says, failure to perform these tasks timely and properly increases the risk of misstatement due to error or fraud. And is that what you were just talking about?
Correct.
the potential, he's saying that there is a potential that this could be symptomatic of a situation that is not the case with us. It's just, he
Correct.
feels that, I think I should just blurt it out. I think Tom wants to let the counselors know things, certainly with the mayor not running again and with me retiring. He wants you all to know some issues that we've had ongoing for a number of years. So you'll see some of these issues in here tonight. Just so that the next administration that's coming in and the next council that's coming in know that our independent outside auditor, is aware of these issues.
And also, you know, I grabbed the fancy words out of my AICPA book. And again, what happened to one of the communities really linked our eyes. And this is, with water and sewer billings in Munis, very common with these glitches across all our 75 communities that have it. And this is a very common finding in there.
That's interesting.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how long would it take for these departments to be able to do it accurately and not have this problem? Because apparently we've been having this problem. As long as I've been a counselor, I have seen we've had problems in this area. And it has not
I'd
improved.
say just really got to get involved in the Munis system. And I encourage communication. The more communication you have between the independent sources.
Can I go back, you're saying, this was a legacy from our old system coming into Munis.
Correct.
It was never corrected in 1994 when we moved from the old COBOL system into the new Munis system. This is not uncommon when you upgrade your computer system. We did, everybody knew it was there, it's not, there's no $40-something thousand missing.
No, but how long does it take to?
Well, they're gonna work it through, and they'll clean it up. It hasn't been, if you recall the management letters that we got in the early part of this decade when I first came in, we had massive problems that we were trying to clean up. Now we have time to go after these kind of problems. Okay, we had cash that wasn't reconciled, we had all kinds of things that needed to be cleaned up. Those we don't have anymore, and Tom can attest to that. So, so now we're getting to the ones that weren't even on the radar before. Do you see that? Okay,
Yes. Right.
this one, there's no money missing,
Right.
No. they're
now it
fine.
needs to be cleaned up.
So the auditor and the Board of Public Works and the collector are all going to work together on solving this issue, and we'll get it fixed in the next audit. Go for it.
Number 3, the buildup of reserves.
Oh, yeah.
Can we go through them number by number? We
Oh,
haven't
okay.
done number 2.
Number 2, I know something that we talked about, there's older receivables out there in motor vehicle. They are marked at the registry, so if you do catch someone in Nebraska, they will come in. Just a matter of researching. There's some older departmentals, one up there. I like to have, starts researching, either write them off, abate them, start getting the receivables cleaned up on the city's books. This is more of a cleaning up exercise and record keeping. I know some of the departmentals we were going through licenses. You know, we're talking $2,400. Some of them are from showing you like 1994. Just a matter of someone else getting another set of eyes on it and writing them off. I'm not talking material amounts, but we'd like to start just doing some housekeeping on the chart of accounts.
And in municipal finance, writing them off, it's not going to affect the undesignated fund balance because in municipal finance, your receivables are offset by deferred revenue. So it doesn't affect our undesignated fund balance in effect. So we would be writing it off for the two sections of either deferred revenue or receivables, whichever way it goes to fix that. And I did talk to the collector about cleaning up the motor vehicle excise last year, so I was kind of surprised to see this in here. I guess she hasn't gone far enough.
No, we want to see him reconcile with the deputy. We have a deputy collector with a marks and registries, ensures, you know, if you have a parking ticket out there, speeding ticket, you have to renew your license. When you go in to renew it, they can say, oh, geez, you owe the city of Northampton X amount, you have to pay this before you get your license renewed. At some point, I've heard they're trying to connect all of New England, so you get pulled over for speeding in Maine, let's say. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the motor vehicles, when you, again, like Chris says, no bottom line effect when you're writing them off. But, you know, there's quite a few motor vehicle levies outstanding past years.
So if I can recall now, when Joan Serafin came in several years ago, the difficulties that they had with the automobiles, because people had moved out of state, and the question is, how do you actually know where they moved to?
So,
Because you can go live in another state for 6 months and transfer your license.
Correct.
so there's two issues here. One is, can we track them down? If we can, we collect it. I think Melissa's done a very good job of collecting those that she can track down. Then the second one is there a group that we're never gonna get and we write them off? And we have some of those. And then the third issue is, just to put this in context, while Alyssa was aware of this issue, she's also had some significant illness in her department this year. So when it comes to what are the baseline things we want to get done, we want to get the collections done. So this is one of those things that we wanted to do, but taking the checks over the counter comes first.
Yeah, that's like back burner type stuff, more like housekeeping, still, I think it's an important step, you don't want to keep on building and
Right.
building them up.
Absolutely.
Is there any,
Go ahead.
do we communicate with any other states?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Connecticut is one.
I think New York might be one. There's one other state that I think.
Yeah, it was either Rhode Island or New York,
Maybe,
but yes,
it's
we
one of
do.
those two.
But we don't have any trouble within the
No.
Commonwealth?
No, once
We
it's
mark
marked,
them
you
at the
correct.
registry,
Yeah.
and so once they're marked with the registry, the next time that you try to go in and renew your driver's license or renew your plates, you're not gonna be able to until you come in here.
And that's been true since like 1994.
It's been around for a while.
Actually longer than that, since the
Yeah.
80s. If you don't pay a ticket somewhere, or you have something outstanding, excise tax. In fact, I had a friend who lived in Boston, he fought 4 maybe, and he had a ticket in Northampton, and he called me up and he said, will you pay the ticket for me? And then I put the receipt on the DVT, on the Peter Pan bus, and he met it at South Station and went and registered his car. So, I mean, this has been around for a really long time.
I just didn't know if there was any trouble in
No.
Massachusetts.
No,
No.
yeah.
Okay.
No, really, our problem is the number of students in town, and so they'll live in town, and they'll get tickets, and then they'll move away, and they might not even have the same car anymore. They're not registered here, they don't have the same card, and they don't, they don't have a license here.
I know at first hand my wife had a ticket for parking in a church spot. Just for a couple of hours during that Sunday, you couldn't park in that spot. She had got a ticket. She couldn't renew her license.
Was she going to church?
She was going to church
That's not right.
in Boston.
That's not right.
That was a
The
gift.
awful thing.
That was not right.
That's terrible.
It was a wedding, as a matter of fact.
That's all right.
There's gotta be a paper.
The church
dispensation
pay for it?
We paid for it.
Okay, next.
Number 3, build up reserves. City decides, good sound financial practices have free cash, 3 to 5%. Years ago, I believe the city was in that category years ago. Again, the state reduced the reduction of state aid, reduction of local receipts, the economy's taking a downturn. You're not alone in this battle, but we encourage, when you can, to build up the city's reserves, especially free cash stabilization funds. Try to work into your operating budget a standard amount that goes over to the 2 stabilization funds on a periodic basis. I just want to turn to the financial statements for a minute, just to go over where your free cash comes from, how it affects things support and management. On page 19 of the
This
financial.
is the big fat one.
I think the the city's free cash was somewhere just over $1 million, is that correct, Chris? Like $1.05 million or something?
105.
Yep. I think it's very important to know management, where free cash comes from. And on page 19, that's the city's budget versus actual, which I think is one of the most important financial statements of a government. The first column, the original budget, that's the original budget that you voted going into the fiscal year. The final budget is the final budget after all the transfers the council made throughout the year, utilizing free cash reserves. Third column is the actually what happened, the actual revenues that came in, the actual expenses. Fourth column is the amount that get encumbered over to the next fiscal year. Bills come in, they're being paid next fiscal year, so they're authorized to carry it over. You can see from the statement, the column all the way over is basically where the city's free cash comes from. As we can tell, your free cash basically came from the return back of expenditures. I think is very important to know that. You generate, out of the $1,187,000 that was turned back, most of it came from the insurance line item, $635. Again, I think that was a one-time situation. I don't know. That was a savings of the.
It was the savings,
Yeah.
because we changed carriers.
I think there were a couple things that happened there.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't anticipate you're going to get that large
No.
return back again, which then I would anticipate coming at the end of this year. I don't think your free cash is going to be in the millions of dollars. Again, free cash should be utilized as for a one-time thing. It shouldn't be used for, should be limited in what you use for your operational budget. Again, you're not in it alone. I do think the city's very well managed. It's just, when you have a decline in motor vehicle sales, which is most of our communities, our bigger cities have been seeing that. Back to the early parts of the 2000s, there was a lot of motor vehicle sales where higher excise, they get used to budgeting the amount of revenue. Now you got aging vehicles and lack of sales. Well, that affects the city or town's budget. So I think it's very, very important to know you're not generating your free cash off your receipts, your revenues. This year, on $1 million, just over $1 million came from return of appropriations. So I think it's important to know for management where it's coming from. So that's all. Nice for me to say, build up your reserves. When you sit in that city council meeting and argue about putting stabilization funds, I know I'm encouraging it. You can see your reserves, 3 to 5% of your free cash should be, and also free cash and stabilization. I think of this basically for the same thing, just sitting over another fund earning interest. So you can put the two together. So you got about $1.6 million. I'm saying it should be around $3.5 million between the two. I think it's sound financial. And again, you have some other reserves that are sitting there. The ambulance reserve, again, it's strictly for ambulance and running it. And again, parking meters, you have about just shy of $1 million. Sale land, about 436. So, from an outside source to the city, I would encourage to build up the reserves.
Easy for you to say.
Correct. I can sit here all day long and say
You
that.
make it stop snowing.
Correct.
Let's stiff the auditor.
Yeah, no, it's easy for me to say.
How much
But,
can you save by not paying your bill?
probably not much. Again, you have 2.5 out there, so it's difficult. And the other thing is you got OPEB coming down the pike. You've implemented OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits. You're on a pay-as-you-go basis. I believe your liability, as we talk now, is approximately $7.7 million on your balance sheet. It changes by approximately $3 million. So to fully fund your OPEB, you'd have to put another $3 million into your budget.
Every year.
Every year. Every year.
I just want to put that in perspective for people. We'd have to put another $3 million in our budget every year. Our total amount of our increase from Proposition 2.5 on any given year is between 1.1 and 1.3. So all of our local tax money plus money that we don't have would have to go in to fully fund it.
Correct.
So I think the discussion on this in the realms of people who are gonna make decisions about this, is for us to finish fully funding our pension and then start thinking about OPEB.
Correct.
Because we can't get to that $3 million per year
No.
as the way we're currently structured.
Yeah, and I think, as we get some good data here, this is your really second year of implementing OPEB, and OPEB is other post-employment benefits other than pensions, which would be health insurance. Again, your employees, you made a promise to them that when they retire from here, you're gonna pay X amount of their health insurance. And that's what OPEB is doing. Before 2008, governments didn't have to put that liability on their balance sheet. And then, again, I agree with the theory on it, but there's a lot of assumptions in your actuarial study. But they're trying to hit a moving target. They're trying to say health insurance costs 10 years from now are going to be this. So if your employees who are eligible to retire 10 years, they're trying to put that cost back into your current year's budget. So I agree with the theory. A lot of assumptions on it. Liability's been all over the board. You can see you're around $7 million, increase about $3 million a year. But it is I've been telling people now, it's more of an accounting exercise to recognize, yeah, we are making promises to our employees at a future date. We'll be actually paying the benefit with a budget line item. I figure around 2017-18 is when you're going to really start to think about putting something into your budget to fund it into a trust. So now I'm encouraged, it's more of just an accounting exercise of recognizing, hey, you know what, we do have a problem. We are making these promises. How do we deal with it? Once we get probably 2 or 3 actuaries under our belt and get some historical data we can compare and kind of work out the assumptions, I think that's when it's going to be more serious of sitting down and funding it. We do about 70 audits and we have 1 town that's even thinking about funding it. Wellesley was very aggressive. They issued OPEB bonds. I don't know if there's too many assumptions in that to issue, so I definitely, I think.
They did OPEB obligation bonds?
Yeah. 20 million, I think. I remember reading about it. They issued, and they were debt excluded bonds.
Yeah,
I'd swap books with Wellesley anytime.
Yeah.
So can we just go back historically, this was an unfunded obligation because nobody paid into Medicare for our people. So we were on the hook for 100% of the health insurance for people that work for the city. Starting in, when was it, 85, we started paying into Medicare for people? 86. So starting in 86, we started paying into Medicare. So anybody that was hired by us after 86 and put in a certain number of quarters, it was Medicare eligible. Anybody that was hired by us before 86 and didn't have the right number of quarters in was not Medicare eligible. So we have some people who are still in our health insurance plan who we pay for a full non-Medicare plan because they're not eligible for a Medicare plan. Anybody that is eligible for a Medicare plan now is on a Medicare plan, and we pay for a supplemental plan for them. So our costs are significantly less than some other communities that haven't accepted this section of state law that requires people to go onto Medicare when they're eligible. We've done that. All of our new retirees are going on. Any of ours that hadn't gone on are on now. We have to pay part of a penalty for them, but that cost will go away too. So we've done that, which is reducing our OPEB obligation.
Correct.
And the second thing that we've done is there was a folk rumor, which turned out to be the people were doing this. People could work for the city for 10 years, go away, work someplace else for 30 years, come back here and take their retirement out and go on our health insurance. And
They'd work here for 10 years,
and go away.
because that's because they
They would get vested in the pension
here.
system, then they'd go away, work somewhere else, and come back and take both their pension and our health insurance.
And they wouldn't get a health insurance wherever they worked before, so they were using criminals.
And we promulgated a policy about 5 years ago that said that in order to be eligible for our retirement health insurance, you have to be working for us when you retire.
Makes sense.
Otherwise, it's an open-ended obligation
Correct.
to anybody who worked for us long enough to get vested, even if they went and worked somewhere else. You work for us for 15 years to 25, working in the rec department, vested in our health, vested in our pension. and then go work someplace from 25 to 65, you could come back and go on our health insurance.
What was that, about 10 or a dozen people or something?
There were, actually, it affected a small universe of people that were not here. But even though those 10 or a dozen people, if they had come back on, would have cost us.
I remember it, I
Yeah.
remember
We
that.
just
It
went
was a
through
small
that
number of
about
people.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, we changed the policy. So to the extent we can make policies that kind of try to contain this OPEB problem, we're trying to do it.
Correct, yeah.
That's the reason I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I think the city has done everything they can within their power to manage it. I agree with that statement. They adopt section 18, they've identified risks where they could be exposed in the retirement situation. Just now, the only way to, there's only certain ways you can defend OPEB is plan design. Changing plan design is a negotiable item, which they're trying to change as, you know, I mean, that's, we're speaking on that. I think OPEB's driving that.
OPEB's part of it.
Yeah, that's the last thing you can do is plan design, and that's not easy to change.
One other point that I think is important, and you may or may not agree with me on this, but we have an unfunded problem for our retirees. But everybody who lives and works in the United States of America has an unfunded problem for their Medicare. Medicare is not funded
Correct.
past 2045 or something like that.
Yeah, same
So-
situation. Same situation.
So it's the same situation. We're being required to fund it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Or at
just
least
say,
quantify it.
Uh-huh.
The federal government is not being required to
Correct.
fund Medicare, except that they're doing the same thing. They're paying as they go.
Correct. And I think that's correct. You know, the world's on a pay-as-you-go basis. That's what I have to say now. I'm putting away money for my kids' tuition to college. You know, if you pay as you go there, you know.
What?
Yeah,
My house
pay as you
mortgage
go.
pay as you go. You know, and I think that's the general gist is, if you sat around saying there's a hard cost associated with people working that you're putting in your budget, however, you promised them something, so shouldn't that be part of your budget? So, that's what OPEB is all about. It's just there's a lot of assumptions. It's like trying to hit a moving target. So it's just at 2017, 18, I think that's when you have to seriously think about funding it.
I remember the accumulation of sick time that some of the staff had.
We've also
I know, that
negotiated
was
changes on that.
huge, some of them.
Yeah.
We've done some work negotiating changes on that. Grandfathering in people who've been here for a long time, but newer hires, there is a cap on the accumulation. You know, it's interesting that, you know, the city's been here for a long time, so a lot of negotiations happen, a lot of agreements were made over many, many years, but then times change and you have to try to make the agreements fit the current fiscal conditions.
Really wow, you know, a
Yep.
huge amount of money.
Yeah.
What about comp time, we doing?
We have a cap on comp time. We're not, you know, we're still managing that. There's some issues there, I would say. I mean, I'd say actually if the best scenario would be to create exempt employees for all of our department heads, but I don't think we're there yet.
How much comp time?
I couldn't tell you.
Do you have a list of it?
And there's a legal maximum, so it's not, yeah, we certainly have a list of, but there's a legal max how much people are allowed to. So, I mean, comp time is less of an issue, I think, than the sick time, and the much bigger issue is the health insurance, in terms of cost to the city.
I think my father had a year and a half of sick time or something when he retired after 44 years. He was able to collect, I think, 2/3 of it.
Same
2/3
amount.
at the current hourly rate.
Yeah, it was
which
enormous.
Which was an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
We have a capped benefit now of $5,500.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, one of the things, and that's what I'm encouraged about the city. The city, you know, always manages their liabilities or acknowledge them and work within the risks. We have a couple of cities that, I don't know, here in the furlough days, a lot of cities got into them. That's the worst.
Yeah,
They grant the furlough days, so you work for free now, but when you retire, when you leave the city, we'll pay you back at your current rate of pay. Well,
you're just kicking the can
you,
down the road.
correct, you're just treading water at that point. I mean, 2 of our cities have done it. And you know, their liability right now, I think, was $740,000. I guarantee you 10 years from now, it's gonna double. Because people are gonna move up with their current rates of pay. Our patrol officers are down below, they're gonna go up, so I would not encourage that. I mean, that's starting to be a wave. I see more people talking about it.
We haven't talked about it. It's not
Yeah,
a,
I wouldn't think Northampton would
it
talk
would
about
burden,
that.
it burdens the next,
Correct.
you know, future administrations and future budgets with the cost that's, you know, the OPEB I feel like is part of a larger national problem, but the furlough issue really end up,
That's a local issue. Yeah,
That's a
furlough's a local issue.
That's
OPEB's are
right.
national. I think a lot of things have to clear out before OPEB can really be addressed at the local level.
Could you recap that one more time, the pre-1986 and after 1986 on that?
so pre-1986, city employees didn't, when Social Security came in, municipal governments were not required to be involved in Social Security. I think it was optional.
Correct.
But Massachusetts was a non-Social Security state, so if you joined, you know, the workforce of a city or a town or the state, you didn't pay into Social Security, you had a local pension.
Right.
When Medicare came in 1964, same deal. The state was a non-Social Security state and also didn't pay into Medicare and instead insured retirees if you accepted some section of Chapter 30B, 32B, I don't know which one it was.
I want to say 8, but I can't.
Right, so if you accepted that section, you agreed to pay for retiree health. And so, you know, that made sense if there was a whole group of people in the world who were getting Medicare and then there were public employees who didn't get anything after they turned 65. So the cities and towns and the state said, we'll pay post-retirement health benefits. And the minimum contribution was 50%, you had to pay 50% of it. Well, time went on, and in 1986, Reagan, Medicare was broke, and Reagan and Tip O'Neill cut a deal where, just I think probably what they did, smoking cigars on the balcony or whatever, you got that from the tape? Where they agreed to require anybody who had been exempt from Medicare, require them to go into Medicare.
Correct, Medicare.
And so anybody who was, all the cities and towns had to go in. We had to pay the Medicare tax and the employees had to pay the Medicare tax. And you might recall last week, whenever we briefed you last on the budget, Chris said our Medicare contribution is going up because slowly but surely people here who were exempt aren't here anymore. So everybody now is pretty much paying the Medicare tax, just about everybody.
That was what made me ask the question. That's
Yes, our employer share keeps going up every year as we get more people on it.
What's the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
Medicaid is an income eligible program for poor people.
Oh, okay.
Medicare is for elderly. So anybody over 65 is Medicare eligible. You can be any age and be Medicaid eligible if you don't have enough money. So we, in 2002 or 2003, we adopted Section 18, which required all of our retirees who were eligible to go on to Medicare.
Yeah.
So that dropped, and I think Councilor Labarge was on the council at that time, and that certainly saved us a lot of money in our health insurance. And we were required to give the retirees an actuarially equivalent plan to what they were getting with us. And you put the Medicare together with what their supplement plan is, they have an actuarial equivalent to what they were getting with us. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can explain that down.
Yeah, one
Just
question.
treat it as a nursery, as a fairy tale. Once upon a time.
One question about the free cash, the buildup of the reserves, free cash. You lump all this into one paragraph here.
Yep.
So you're not indicating that all of these are free cash?
No, I'm saying free cash is $1 million. That in free cash in sound financial practice would be 3 to 5%.
The 1050.
Yeah.
That's the free cash.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just curious. It's just all into one paragraph, so I thought I'd ask.
I didn't do too good on the SATs in English, you know. I'm
Okay.
more of a math guy.
I'm just checking.
We sometimes have an issue with free cash, and then you've got the overlay, and then you've got these reserve accounts.
Yeah.
It's not all the same.
No.
You know, it's not all the same.
So-
Yeah. I can put a paragraph in there,
No, it's all right.
but it's a mess on my page numbers, is all.
But when the bond rating agencies look at it, they do look at all the different
Yeah.
reserves.
Do they?
Yeah,
So,
correct.
They do, they don't look just at the free cash.
So we get points for that other stuff, but it ain't
We do.
free cash.
Right.
Correct, yeah, you get points for it, like in your bond ratings,
In fact, some of the rating agencies don't know what the words free cash means. They
correct.
draw a blank on that. That's a Massachusetts fiction.
So it's an undesignated, they'll look at the undesignated fund balance and then they'll look at the stabilization funds. And, you know, Gene, I remember debating you when I ran for mayor, and you wanted to know why I'd stashed all those monies in the different accounts. It was to carry us through to today. And and it has.
I just thought I'd ask.
Good question.
Yeah.
And, but where we are today, we have a policy that was promulgated by, I think this finance committee, to aim for 5% in all reserves, not just free cash.
Correct, you have policies and.
And we're working towards that. But again, we have been using all of the rainy day money that we can possibly get to get us to today. And this year will again be a very difficult budget year. So the one place we are subsidizing the budget, the one very clear place we're subsidizing the budget with the undesignated fund balances and the veterans benefits.
Correct.
We really should be budgeting the full amount of the veterans benefits in the budget. If we budget $700,000 worth of veterans benefits in the budget, I'm gonna have to cut $500,000 from somewhere else. That's why we haven't done it.
You just stole my next question. We just talked to him last night.
Yeah, I mean, there's no other way we can do that unless we cut from somewhere else. So we're working on how we can give them a little bit more money this year and try to start building that up, so.
I don't, Chris probably, I mean, I don't think free cash is gonna be in the $1 million range, yeah. I don't anticipate, because you had that off your appropriation going into this fall, I don't.
This is going to be part of the budget issue upstate for FY11, which is coming up in the next thing. But certainly, given what we've had to do with snow and ice this year, and what we've had to do with the veterans and some other issues, which I'll talk about, we're going to be. We will have used up all the free cash that got certified, and I'm hoping very much that we'll be able to close enough balances to have some free cash going into FY12. But I don't think it's going to be anywhere near. I think it's going to be under $1 million.
Do you want us to call you and tell you what it is?
No.
Okay.
Because things are bad all the way around, and as is indicated by no fancy covers and the green binders that we used to
Fancy
get.
covers.
Oh, no, yeah.
This is still drafting.
A nice green last year.
Just a kind of unrelated question. The roof snow, is that snow and ice?
It can be classified
we
that
get it
way.
in
We
there?
put it into central services because they were the ones that were spearheading the effort. DOR has said that it falls under the same legislative
Okay.
thing as snow and ice removal. So it could get raised in the recap next year, but next year's worse than this year. So we really don't want to be raising the snow and ice
Pass the buck
deficit
tonight.
on next year's tax rate. We just don't have the
We try to-
capacity for it.
I think Chris and I both have the same philosophy. Try to contain the problem to the best extent possible in the year that you have incurred it.
Well, every year has its own problems.
That's
so
right.
You don't want them to build up on it.
So if you carry the snow and ice deficit into next year, there's something else you can't pay for next year, and
What
that's
happens if
gonna
the
start.
snow's even worse next year?
Exactly.
So,
Then you're into a perpetual cycle of kicking the can down the road.
Wouldn't be able to
You
keep
never
up.
catch up.
I have a few of those lines.
so, do you wanna keep going on the
Number four?
management letter?
Yeah, I'll just do the last one, it's probably the fourth one, the Smith Folk School and net school spending. This is a yearly problem. The reason why I want it in the management letter so we could discuss, it'll probably come out once we discuss it, that's why it's in draft form is. The reason is because Chris and the mayor are leaving. Smith Vocational is an unusual situation. When they fill out the end of year report, you always fall under net school spending. But as a district in total, you're way over net school spending between the high school, between the regular school and Smithville, you're way over, I think it's like $2 million over. Again, if you go to Westfield, they have a Voc school too, but they're treated as one for net school spending. And it's the way the students are up there on a tuition basis. I know the mayor and Chris can probably comment more on it, but it's a yearly situation that DOE is aware when they file the end of year report, a letter comes and it's usually an explanation on the mayor's part to DOE to satisfy it. I just want to know it's an ongoing issue that happens every single year. I just don't want to blindside anybody that coming up saying, oh, they met net school spending. I believe you do in total, but you have to argue that every year.
So, this is, thanks Chris. So the way the state funding formula works, there's a requirement for a local expenditure and there's a requirement, then the state makes up the difference if you know. And there's a target that you have to reach every year. On the Northampton Public Schools side, we've been over as much as $4 million. We're at 2-something million this year over when you put together everything. They count a lot more than just what the school appropriation is. They also count all the benefit costs for the employees in the schools. They count the capital spending that we do for the school. They count the support services. So for instance, the school system doesn't cut their own paychecks. We cut their paychecks. We manage their time. You know, we pay their bills ultimately through the auditor's office. They count some percentage of that time. Chris and I do some of the work for their financing so that they count a little bit of the mayor's office. There's a whole set of things that are allowed to be counted, but ultimately all those numbers come together to create something called net school spending, a requirement that we have under state law. Northampton has historically been above net school spending on the Northampton public school side and under net school spending on the Smith Folk side. Now, Smith Folk, 75% of the kids are from out of district and 25% of the kids are from in district. The out of district kids pay a tuition that's set by the state. It doesn't cover the full cost including capital. We pay all the capital for the school. And our contribution to the school is probably the single biggest contribution. Is not a cash contribution, but, well, it is a cash contribution, followed by the health insurance, similar to the Northampton Public Schools. But we never quite reach the net school spending.
Foundation, is that what you're?
No. They're at foundation.
Okay.
The issue is, can we get above the certain number that the state wants us to get to every year? And we're not above it.
The big problem is that the Smith Folk is a separate district from the state's perspective.
But from our point of view, it's a 125 kid district. We only have 125 kids in the school.
Yeah, so that makes
If we paid tuition just like everybody else did, we would pay a lot less for the school.
Okay.
Okay? But we don't, and we pay more, and that's fine. And the state knows that we're the only school. You can't take this formula that was devised for the whole state and apply it to this school. So every year I have a conversation with the people at the state and say, you know why we're not meeting net school spending? And they say, yes, we know. And whoever the next mayor is going to have to pick up the phone and say, do you know why we're, and they'll have to say, yes, we know.
All right, so the 125 kids you speak of are from Northampton.
Northampton kids. It depends on the year.
Yeah.
You know, when I started, we had a cash, what we don't have there now is a cash deficit. When I started in 2000, we had about a $300,000 cash deficit there because we weren't tracking how, let me see if I can explain this. There was a projection enrollment and the tuition would come into the general fund, but if they didn't meet the enrollment projection, we still were spending as if they met the enrollment projection.
Yeah.
What we did now is have an enrollment number, and if they exceed the enrollment, we're not quite doing it this way anymore because we've gotten it to work, but initially we said, we'll budget 95% of what you think you're going to enroll. And anybody you enroll over the 95%, you keep in your tuition revolving account. So now they have control over a certain amount of their own money. And whatever we are not able to give them, or whatever they want to do extra, they have a pot of money that they can go to in their tuition revolving account, okay? So when I talk to them, they don't tell me that they're hurting for dough. I wish we could do more for them because I think there's some capital expenditures up there that need to be done, and they have a building that they've already brought to capital. I think there are more capital expenditures to be done.
I heard it.
But educationally, I'm very proud of that school. I think they're doing great things up there. I think they're doing very good things. So,
Yeah.
but we do have this net school spending problem because this one school that is funded in this unique way in the whole state doesn't fit the formula that's written for, 321 districts. That's the problem.
So how does Westfield differ, or Holyoke, or
Because
places
Holyoke
of
and Westfield,
Greenfield,
so
or Turner's Falls?
the way it
Hard
would work, if we
school
brought
district.
Smith School into our school system, we would not have a net school spending problem because we're $2 million on the Northampton Public School side. So we're whatever we are, 125 or whatever we are under on the Smith side. If we brought it in, we'd net out to be still very much positive.
There's no other municipality that has two schools.
But if we took it in, it would change. It changes some of the AYP issues for the district, some of the No Child Left Behind standards for the district. It also, because it's uniquely because of the unique way the school was founded, you'd actually have to go to court to make that change, and you need an act of the legislature to make the change.
So-
There hasn't been a particular willingness on the board, part of the Board of Trustees to do that. They'd have to be willing to do it.
So we are
I think-
unique in the state. with that.
Only one.
Nobody
Yeah.
else.
Worcester had a school that was created this way as well, they brought it into the district finally. I think it's we've had the conversation a couple times over the years, there hasn't been a willingness on the part of trustees to make the change. There may be other ways that we can collaborate together, that, short of combining the school to the two districts, and as long as the state is willing to say, we understand why you're under net school spending, but you're still achieving what you need to achieve, I'm not sure it needs to be a big issue.
Yeah, no, that's just, where it's on point is because there's a change.
That's right.
Having a DSC, there's a change here, and we're gonna call it, it's a yearly thing that happens.
That's right. Definitely a yearly
I think
thing.
it's important to know that that yearly thing is unique, and it's as simple as that. I mean, DOE's now saying, do you want us to send a letter? They're at that point.
Yeah.
They understand,
But it's still a
they're not
situ-
critical.
Yeah.
But you're right, you could have a bunch of changes at DESE or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
I hate it when these
I know.
agencies change their name. You could have a change and we need to deal with it, so,
And anything that we do with Con Ed or ESCO, did that assist Smith School in any way with, as far as capital?
We did some work up there. We didn't do as much as we had hoped we could do because there were issues involved in payback time periods.
Yeah, the boiler and the window.
Boiler
a
and
couple
windows. But
didn't fit in the plan.
we did do a bunch of stuff. We certainly upgraded all of their control systems. So yeah, we've done some stuff up there.
Plus
As part of
the-
the ESCO.
Plus the Green Communities grant, we allocated most of it to the PV array at
Yep,
Smith. as
PV
well.
array got installed, so yeah.
but here's part of the problem. As you add, think if I can, how to say this. Because of the way they count, part of the problem is the way they count kids. They count our kids from the previous October, but they count the out-district kids in the current year. So let's say we had a good year. We had a year when we had 125 kids. The next year we have 110 kids. We have to pay into that school as if we have 125 kids the following year. So there's a lag every year about what the number is, which creates
For the
an extra
calculation.
layer of complexity around the net school spending problem. But the tuition is paid, actually for those kids, the tuition is paid, the out-of-district kids, it's by the day. So if a kid comes to us from September 7th to January 17th, that's it, we don't get any more money after that.
So when East Hampton decided to send their kids to Springfield,
We
we
lost
took a
money.
hell of a hit.
We lost money.
Are they back?
Some kids are, if the way Chapter 74 works, if the program is offered in our community and not anywhere else, they have the right to come here. So we have a number of kids for ag because nobody else is offering ag. I mean, I think the kids get a great education. I think they get a really good education. We're doing well with kids who, some kids, sitting down in a classroom and learning all day is not the way they learn the best. And we have kids who are learning very well in that environment. And it's really an asset to the city and to our educational system. It's just structured differently, so that means it doesn't fit the mold of what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is used to looking at. But the folks in the leadership there know that. So, and I think you're right to put a marker in here to say, hey, don't forget this.
And, that's it for the current finding, if you have specific questions about it, then.
So that's the entire management letter. Is there anything else that?
Yeah, there's some informational stuff with GASB 54.
Yeah, some of
Okay.
these are older issues from prior audits, prior year items that are still, he lists them and he says where we're at with them. But that's basically it for the new stuff.
I want to note the last prior year issue was the cell phone policy. We have drafted a cell phone policy. I would say within the next 2 weeks it's going to be implemented. We've done an inventory of all the phones. We've looked at various policies from a lot of other different communities to try to arrive at the one that's most appropriate for the city of Northampton's needs. And we will be implementing it, I would say, within the next 2 weeks.
Off the top, I think it's cell phones that we have.
I have the inventory sitting on my desk, and if you want to take a look at it, you could.
Why don't you- I'll just give you a number.
I would, I can't do it by number. Police, fire, DPW, central services, and the EMS portion of fire have phones that sort of go with people on shift or whatever, and central services and DPW use the sort of push to talk, because they're in and out of places so much that that's the most sensible one for them to use. Those are work issue phones, they stay at work generally, and they, and then in other departments, as needed, we have people who have them, some with data phones, some without data phones, and that's what we're just clarifying now. How do they get approved? Who makes the approval? And what level or kind of phone can you have? Is what we're looking at now.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Pleasure working for the city. Last chance to.
Been a pleasure
get rid
working
of
with
it.
you, Tom. Seriously.
Maybe not
And
quite
you
sure,
and,
Tom.
you and your father before you.
I'm going to Hawaii in a couple weeks.
He's living a good life.
I know, huh? If you have any questions anytime, don't
Yeah.
hesitate to call or email.
And I'll be handing out bound audit reports and bound management reports at your April 7th council meeting.
That will be your last meeting?
Is your number on here?
Oh, you're getting the one up, more after that.
Oh, no, my cell phone, 413.
Will Tom be at the April 7th meeting?
5310.
Do the briefing?
Need him?
I don't think we do.
I was just gonna hand that.
I didn't hear that.
One took it to finance.
Yeah.
531-0127.
Thank you.
Giving out your cell phone. Whoa.
And your home phone?
Couldn't get that on my way. Actually, one time I gave, I don't know what I was thinking. I gave my house number as a fax number. All day I went to faxes every time I picked it up.
Oh,
I don't know,
Thanks
thinking.
again, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next is FY11 budget issues. This is an update from Mr. Pyle.
Okay, at your April 7th meeting, I'm gonna be bringing forward a number of council for motions to transfer funds around. You'll know every spring, April or May, I fix people's budgets at the end of the year, so that we know what the net transfers need to be, and if we can save money, we do. There were some step raises and some 1% increases for employees during FY11, which were not in the budget. They're being funded from the salary reserve account. There's the snow and ice that needs to be dealt with. There's the veterans services that needs to be dealt with. There's the ambulance service to the end of the fiscal year. We knew about that in January.
Fire overtime, which would either come now or later in the year.
Right.
Probably later.
It's probably be later on that, probably after I'm gone, but I want to try and get as much of it settled before I leave as I can. I don't know if I'll be able to do the snow and ice if it keeps doing stuff like it did last night. We may have to keep that one open until June. There's been one major thing that came up this year that I've written you a memo about, that we're going to have to do a transfer on. It's to clean up some old, it's a legacy issue that the Department of Revenue is finally getting around to asking us to resolve. We've always budgeted based on number of payrolls in a given year. So there's 26 payrolls is the normal thing because we're a bi-weekly payroll. And about every 14 years or so, we have to come up with a 27th payroll. In little communities, if they're on a weekly payroll, they've had 52, 52, 52, and then every once in a while they have to do 53 weeks, 53 pays. This next fiscal year, FY12, for the weekly pay communities is going to be a 53-week year. So the Department of Revenue, realizing this, wanted to get out in front of it and remind everybody that they need to budget on an accrual basis. In other words, the costs that you incur in a fiscal year between July and June, that those costs are properly allocated in that fiscal year. So if you earned money right through to June 30th, even though that's being paid to you in July, it should be charged back to the prior fiscal year. we're gonna bite the bullet this year and take care of this and get proper with Department of Revenue. We would have had to come up with our 27th payroll in FY13 anyway. Rather than have this hanging out there for my successor and for the next mayor, the mayor and I decided to deal with this year. This will make things easier going forward. We'll be able to budget appropriately for the actual days earned in any given fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th. But this is going to require doing a lot of transfers because I need to get all the budgets to accommodate an extra 12 days, basically. I think I can do this. I'm going to know better by next Wednesday. I've told all the department heads to get back to me by Wednesday of their needs to get to the end of the fiscal year. And I think we can do this, and I think it'll get us in good shape going forward. We've already had them adjust their FY12 budgets to reflect the fact that they're going to have 26 pays plus a day, plus 1 day that they have to account for in FY12. So they've all corrected their budgets that are already submitted in February. So we're moving down the path to get this fixed, but that's going to be a big chunk of change, but we're going to take care of it now and get this behind us.
It'd be a shame if you had to postpone your retirement to get all that done.
Look at that.
I'll get it done.
I have a question.
Sure.
The adjustment does not affect teachers and other contract employees. Their service ends June 30th,
Correct.
as they have already been budgeted appropriately.
Right, because teachers, there's two ways that teachers get paid after their 180 days. They can either get what's known as a balloon payroll, and that usually comes out in mid-June, and that's for the teachers that opt to have all of their accrued time that they had paid out then. There are other teachers who are on they have opted to have 12 months of pay, and we end up paying them during the summer, July and August, just on the regular schedule. But what we do is we accrue that pay back. We've always accrued that pay back to the prior year. So when they get paid in July and August, it's already been booked in 11.
Okay.
And it's just hitting on a balance sheet account during July and August. So they were not a problem because they were already budgeted for those extra days at the end of June didn't matter for them because they're on a contract 180-day schedule. So their money was already set, regardless of when the pay periods fell. Their money was set.
And there's no additional benefit to them to do it this way?
There's no
or-
additional benefit to anybody.
Actually, there
As
is,
far as the employees,
What's
To the city.
it's invisible to the employees.
from the employees'
But it's better for
perspective,
the city.
nothing, they're gonna get paid on July 14th, or July 7th. They're gonna get a paycheck on July 7th, just like they would have gotten a paycheck on July 7th anyway.
Yeah.
Everything else happening behind the scenes,
Yeah.
that's gonna be hitting a balance sheet account because we've already hit the FY11 budget
Yeah.
for
So-
that pay.
So the upside is that this gets us now fully in accrued, again, keeping
Full.
1 year within the confines of that year. What we had was, because of the way it was done, different years bleeding into the next year, and then every 14 years you had to do a 27th payroll. That was the problem. And then that year you had a big bubble because our full,
Huge.
it's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that payroll. So what we have to bite the bullet this year, but it'll get rid of that 14th payroll problem forever.
Okay.
Okay, that's the benefit of doing it. Now, this year, so the upside, that's the upside. The downside is we're gonna be clearing out every cobwebbed account that there is. If anybody has a little money here or there, we're gonna be trying to grab it to cover these days because we didn't budget for those days, right? They're extra
Yep.
days.
And that's what could affect our free cash. There
That's
would be
right.
less accounts being turned back to the general fund at the end of the fiscal year because if a department has money in their OM account that I can use to pay for that extra 12 days, I'm going to transfer it from their OM to their PS. Just pay it within their department,
We'll be bringing forward
best I can.
at the next meeting a lot of transfers to try to cover this problem. It's not, I would have preferred to be able to leave that money in the free cash, but the flip side of that is you don't want the time bomb going off in 2 years with the need for an extra payroll. Right, so
Well, and
that's,
plus, we probably would have gotten dinged by DOR if we didn't do it.
right.
It's time that it got done. Now that it's on their radar, we want to be ahead of it.
Okay, thank you.
And I think every year, I mean, so I've been around for, I think a couple of these problems. I think one 14-year hit, right? And I remember people said, we have to fix it so it'll never happen again. I don't think it was before I was the mayor, but of course it didn't get fixed because it wasn't a problem. Once it's done, it wasn't a problem. So probably we should have gone in and fixed it in a different year, but we didn't. So that's the big item for this year's budget update. Do you want to talk at all about anything else in the budget for this year?
No, it's just that on your April 7th meeting, I'm going to try, as I say, I'm going to try to clean up as much as I can in the 2 meetings that you have in April before I leave, because I just don't want to have things hanging out there for my successor to get hit the face with in May and June. They're going to have trouble enough with the budget, so I'm trying to get this stuff cleaned up now. So I'll bring as much forward as I can at your April 7th and April 21st meetings.
No new information on your replacement.
I'm not part of that process, so I
The
have
interviews
no
are
idea.
happening this week.
Okay.
So this year, I think the update is basically, this coming year, I think the update is basically where it was. I mean, I think we just met last Thursday and nothing much has changed in the intervening 5 days on the revenue side. And
We've started having department.
we've started to meet with department heads, and everybody came in basically with a level funded budget, not level service. And we're asking them to look for, to tell us where, if they needed to cut, where they could cut. And we'll be probably doing a second round with all of them if we need to make further cuts. And I think we may have to, so that's where we are at this point. Now, you saw that there was an increase in, Tom's page 19 that showed you where the money came back into free cash. The biggest the money that came back at the highest level was the insurance. That's for a couple reasons. One is that because when we got a good price on insurance last year, we didn't cut the insurance line. We left it as is. So we could have cut it and spent the money somewhere else, but we left it as is. So that's one issue. Second is we've been trying to keep a cushion in there because we've seen growth in the enrollment. As people around us, health insurance costs have gone up. We're seeing people come onto our health insurance. So we have to have room in that account for enrollment growth. So that's probably the 2 reasons why that came back. We have seen some enrollment growth. Maybe it could have been worse. We've been trying to keep a cushion. You know, part of the enrollment growth, or part of what we're going to be starting to see, or we have been seeing, is the allowing kids to stay on the plan for a longer period of time. So some of you might have had a kid, a single parent with a kid. That's a family plan. That kid used to have to go off at a certain age. Now they can stay until 26. So we're holding that family plan for a longer period of time too.
The savings on it was almost $1 million, was it?
No.
No, it's 600.
I know we're up 750
The
or
turn
something.
back was about 600,000. I'm talking about last year.
Yeah.
This year, the increase would have been about $700 and something thousand. And we hope, pending negotiations with all our unions, as opposed to the 7.5% increase, to have a 1.3% increase, which would be about $122,000. Those are
635.
But those are
635.
tentative numbers. We're
$635,000.
still circling around those numbers. Those are the numbers that are tentative. Any other questions about that? So again, we're moving along with the decision. We have a council meeting next week. I'll update you as to where we are. I'll hand out another version of that sheet that I've been handing out. April 7th, and I'll hand out the sheet again, and you can see where we are. Don't do that to you, right? Is there any other new business under finance? Okay, seeing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order. For a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
What are you gonna do with all those numbers?
I'm gonna do a brain dump.
No, he was paying close attention.
He knows what he's talking about.
Stuff just listening to me.
You can have that one.
I mean, just
You're wonderful.
following.
Yes, I have to write something down while I'm
What do you
driving.
mean about this? I was taking a phone call. And about the extra paycheck.
So every year,
Is that cooking tonight?
No, honey.
Once upon a time.
No.
exactly.
No, I'm going to have a salad
No, I'm just blocking this one.
We used to have a big style of
Those look really nice, doesn't it? So this is white? Is it optional white, or is it?
We were just checks. And as of the first part of the year, like the new fiscal year, you check an X%.
Got it.
That covered back to the previous fiscal
So do they not just have like stainless too, or is it white or black?
year. Make sure
White or
we
black?
attribute that. Check.
Kind of like the
logical next step, maybe we'll put
You
it
would
like
think,
that.
And
yeah.
that's what we're doing.
Well,
We
I
didn't
guess
do
it's
that
kind of like
before,
the
so now
MacBook
there's a
Pro, which
catch-up
has like
on a
the
certain
black.
amount. Well, I think it would
I
get
just
moved
can't-
forward, but,
I
you
don't know,
know, Chris would
can't
have to talk
quite
to you a little bit about
justify
that
it
in
yet,
mechanism.
because I use my
The check would come
MacBook
out.
all the time, my phone all the time, and
So I
I
get my check.
can't quite figure out how I would
You
use
get a
it.
check on the new, you know.
Except my kids would like to play Doodle Jump on it, or, Angry Birds or whatever, so that'd be about the only thing.
Even though they never.
It's just on a cash
had
basis.
that,
Even though they, right, it's all cash, it's all getting attributed on a cash. And
So
now,
every 14 years.
every 14 years it catches up with you
Two-week
because
pay period.
it's a 2-week pay period.
So how much is that amount?
I haven't got that yet.
We're still working on
I'm still
it.
working on it.
It's in a couple hundred thousand.
And you have a big cobweb of every account.
Yeah, do you like that? I was trying to be literary. No, well, I mean, it'll get figured out, you know. We're cleaning it up, it'll get figured out.
Do you have a copy of that management report?
They'll be handed out at the next city council meeting, because this is in draft.
Oh, it is again.
Yeah, yeah,
Will,
it's
will
only
you
draft.
provide some to the press?
See, it says draft,
Absolutely,
I couldn't see from back there, I didn't have it.
draft.
absolutely provided to the press.
Yeah, it's not nearly as interesting as in Holyoke. Those are really interesting.
Actually, it'll be up on our website. It'll be on the city's website, yeah. All of our audits are on the city's website, so that's where you'll find it. I'm not gonna have bound copies for the press. I don't have enough.
Fine.
Just letting you know, Dave.
Hello there.
Wouldn't want you to be disappointed.
We used to have
Hey,
pretty
my
interesting
meeting is
findings
done,
in
and
ours.
if you're not ready,
Well, I
we'll
did,
go back to
remember
the office, and you
there
can
were
call
some
me when you're free.
specific issues, but when I went down to Holyoke, did I?
Yeah.
Let me get that management letter.
I just got a lot of work to do.
That public document, I said, oh yeah, you know.
So I'll go back there, and you
Aaron,
can call me
he
when
said,
you're done.
let me just show you this. And that's when,
From Michael.
Okay, good.
yeah, that's
Was he
right.
like the
He
treasurer
made
and-
it a point to go after the treasurer because they was running such a terrible
We had,
shop.
we had unreconciled cash when I was first here, so we don't have that anymore. We don't have that problem.
Everything happy too. Remember,
Hey, remember when Goshen couldn't send out tax bills for like a
You
year?
are like seized Goshen, didn't they?
Yeah,
They
Pretty
seized the
much.
town, and because they wouldn't go to 100% valuation, so they seized the town, and they did it for them. Then they gave them the bill and gave them the town back with the bill. Yeah, it was really something.
It was an intervention.
Yeah, it was sort of
Can I
like,
talk to
you
about
ain't
the
a
cell
town no
phone
more.
issue?
You are took
I can
over.
talk to you about it at the end of next week, beginning of next week, because we're
That
not
was
quite done
something,
yet.
yeah.
But
I
I'm
think
happy
that
to
was-
give you
that
that.
was- how I ever heard of they did
different
that.
departments would, they didn't always both purchase, I mean, is
No,
that
we're
sort of-
actually, there's a couple of things. One is that people are now collaborating together on cell phone purchases.
Right.
But the second thing was, what's our standard reimbursement? We didn't have a standard reimbursement across all departments.
So they would keep the phone, they would keep the phone all the time, and part
Yeah.
would be for business.
Well,
and
but
have to
I mean, you know,
document it.
some people didn't. Some people had a personal phone and had a reimbursement. Some people had a city-owned phone and were using it primarily for business, but maybe partially for their own business. So we're
Yeah,
straightening that out and we're gonna move towards a
yeah.
standard.
And some of them have T-Mobile, they press a button, you talk to them, and the others.
Right, but the people that have those Nextel or whatever, push to talk, we want to
Good night,
use
Counselor.
that
See you
to
tomorrow.
network.
Door.
And I think most of them need. So it's really, and on the police side, you
That's
know.
one of those issues that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I know.